Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. As we roll on with Correspondence Week, my name's Serge.
And my name is James.
And I think if you've been listening to the pod, you'll know the drill here. We have 20 of our correspondents on this week talking about each Premier League club, hopes and dreams and FPL assets and everything that goes with it. James, do you want to introduce this week's, or not this episode, it's not this week's because everyone's this week, this episode's correspondent.
Hopes and dreams. And like your dreams, they fade and die.
Did you like my segue there?
Very good, mate. I don't know if you did that on purpose or not, but I did. We are joined by Chris, our West Ham United correspondent at FI_FPL Addict. How are you, buddy?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Hope you're both well.
Yeah,
Can't
no
complain
complaints at all, mate. Should I just shut up for half an hour, Serge?
Well, let's both. The people hear my views on West Ham plenty, so it's nice to actually get a differing opinion or just a different voice on it. And so another difficult season over, and then you reset. And I don't know about you, but there's a part of me at the start of the season that's always, this season will be different, with optimism, and then probably a couple of weeks in, here we go again after a couple of weeks. So, what are your thoughts for this coming season? More optimistic, less optimistic?
I suppose maybe more realistic, which is, like you say, you're always optimistic at the start of the season. You go through that emotion where you convince yourself that you're going to do better. These things have all these certain elements are in place. If they fall into place, if we do well, if we start well, so we get the fixtures. So that's not a great start. I would say my expectations this season are just to stay up. A good season. Well, no, not good. I suppose a very good season would be finishing sort of 10th or 11th mid-table. That would be a good season. I know there'd be West Ham fans who would probably think that isn't the case, but I think that's an optimistic view to finish that high based on what we did last year and where we finished. So it's just really hope we can get off to a reasonable start, given the fact that we've got some very difficult fixtures coming up.
I was going to say, Chris, you were probably full of optimism until you saw the fucking fixture list, weren't you?
yeah, no, exactly.
Unbelievable.
So, I think not last year, the year before, we had like the first 5 were bad, but I thought the first sort of 7 fixtures, and it's like, oh, you're joking, aren't you? Someone's really got it in for Moyes or West Ham.
I like the fact that there would have been a tease in it, because obviously if you'd have been watching Sky Sports News or something when the news broke, you get, West Ham at home to Newcastle opening day, and you go, that's all right. Let's put up your first 7. Bosh.
I know. Exactly. We see the first one. I think that's not too bad. We're at home. We've got Newcastle. Newcastle aren't great in London. They're not easy to beat, but you've got a chance in that. And then you see the rest of them. You think, oh shit, we're going to be bottom by the end of October.
Is that what you think, realistically?
No, I think we could do. I think that's what everyone's going to think. I would hope that we could possibly get maybe. Very, very optimistic. If we could get 7 points in that 3 games, then we're not going to be far away from the bottom 3.
I was thinking 9. It's interesting you went with that. I was thinking originally 9 or 10 points from the opening 8 games. Would be okay.
It will be.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. 9 is where I'm going. 8 or 9 points, 1 point per game, will be okay.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the first games puts a bit of pressure on them, I think, to start off with, because if you lose that game, you then got that prospect of all the other fixtures. So that adds that'd be interesting to see how they cope. I think the fact there's no crowd, that probably helps. It helps us, I think, at the end of the season in some ways, because our crowd doesn't always help when things aren't going well. And obviously you've got the whole thing with the owners, so you've got all that frustration that comes out. Doesn't help the players.
I'm not judging you guys. You carry on talking. I'm just reading something. Carry on.
But I think we could get 9 points. I mean, obviously Newcastle is 1 game. Arsenal, we might be able to get something out of like a point, but these are those sort of games where you're hoping for something. You're not going into them thinking we are going to get that or we've got a realistic chance of it. But even maybe Wolves or Leicester, those sort of teams, they're not so far away that they're untouchable. But we've got to get something in those games, I think, just to give us just to give us a bit of a lifeline, and so that confidence isn't completely decimated by the time we do come to the easy fixtures or easier fixtures.
I don't know how you feel as a fan, but I've always felt that scoring goals has never really been the biggest problem. Like, we'll score in more games than we won't. And so scoring goals, if we we can score goals, and we've scored goals against most teams. If you look at the second half of the season when Antonio had come back again, it was having him up top was a real game changer, and did help the team. Not only that, the guys in behind him, I mean, Jared Bowen, and Yarmolenko and what have you, still can't get on with Lanzini and Anderson and what have you.
No.
But it felt like the attacking threat was there going forward. And defensively, this is going to sound weird. We're not that bad defensively, but what happens is when one thing goes wrong, we're like a deck of cards that just collapses, or a house of cards, sorry, I should say. And that's the problem for us. We'll be in games and be doing okay, and then one thing will go wrong. We'll concede one goal, and then just like a house of cards, it collapses. And that's what I want to see change next season. If we can get a bit of a backbone and just not be so weak sometimes, we've got a chance.
We had that, didn't we? When we first came out of lockdown, obviously had a few more difficult fixtures. It looked like where are the goals going to come from? And then something sort of clicked, and we got a couple of goals. Again, winning breeds confidence, so that helps. Obviously, Antonio got up front. He did very well. Like you say, Bowen. I think we struggle a little bit for creativity now. And where Anderson's gone completely off the boil. Obviously, Lanzini's not there. They're probably our two most out-and-out creative players. Bowen's a hard worker, but can create, but more through hard work rather than, what you'd say is natural ability. Whereas Lanzini and Anderson have probably got that more. Fornells is probably the one who has got that passing ability, but the trouble with him is he doesn't really fit into a natural position. He's not strong enough to be a number 10, because he doesn't quite do the Lanzini bit when Lanzini was playing well, and he hasn't got the pace to be on the left. So he's kind of a bit of everything without being quite what in anything. Yeah, exactly. So that's the tricky sort of thing. But like you say, I think part of when we improved defensively was having Soucek and Rice, because you had two midfielders who were in front of the back four who could put their foot in. Obviously, Rice is, renowned as a defensive player, break stuff up. But Soucek will get in there. He will defend as well. Sometimes it's not always a good thing if he's scoring own goals. But but
it was a good own goal.
It was great finish, blinding.
It was a Cruyff turn all the way.
Yeah.
I think what you mentioned there, I mean, if you said to me you can sign one player this summer, it'd be Declan Rice. I mean, keeping him is more important than maybe anything else that we could bring in, especially for that defensive stability. And we'll see what happens with him in the coming weeks. Talking about FPL and FPL West Ham assets, and there are a few that are interesting. I mean, Soucek is being done to death at 5 million. But from a fan that watches the games, can you explain to me what Aaron Creswell has done to justify being £5 million and having a price increase? Because both him and Ogbonna came in at 5 million, and I was just thinking, with a team that defends as badly as we do, and he scores one goal a season, maybe two.
I reckon because we're if they must have gone through in alphabetical order, and they must have got to the end of the day like 5 o'clock where everything's overran and they just needed to get the pricing out quick. Because I think when you look across our pricing across the board, it doesn't really completely make sense. So they've done it in brackets. So like you say, you've got Ogbonna, you've got Cresswell at 5. They're not 5 million defenders. If you compare them with the other 5 million defenders, and I haven't gone through all of the players, but you've got like Dyer and people like that. It's not just the players, it's the teams. So you're putting teams up there that are in the top 6. We're in the relegation. I know we had an improved defence towards the end of the season, but one of the worst defences over the course of the season, and you're pricing someone at 5 million. He's not scoring 10 goals or anything like that. So it does seem very, very strange. I can't see why anyone would want to go near them at that price, even the most loyal supporter. And then
go on. Sorry, you were saying.
I was going to say, and then you look at like the midfield prices. So they kind of go into brackets. You've got like 6.5 million. and you've got like a few players. You've got Anderson, Lanzini, Bowen. They're all priced the same, but they've all had very, very, very different seasons. And then you've got, I think, Fornells is 6, Dean Garner's 5.5, which is a sort of okayish price. And then the others are all 5. So you've got like, so when I sort of said in the article, you've got Soucek the same price as Wiltshire. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Don't start me off, Chris.
Well, I think they're trying to get rid of him, so maybe Mourinho will pick him up. I don't know.
Yeah, and looking up top, the other one.
We ain't that fucked, mate.
The other one that we looked at, and James and I had a giggle on a previous pod, is like up front as well. Haller and Antonio at 6.5. I don't mind their prices. That's fine. I mean, Haller was injury hit last year. I don't know, in a full season, maybe 12, 14 goals would be a good season for him. But then where does Jordan Hugill come in at £5.5 million, having played 100 minutes over 2 seasons?
I know.
It doesn't matter now because he's joined
gone
Norwich.
to Norwich.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. He's gone. But it does make you think, where's the logic in the pricing?
Yeah.
Taking it back to the defence, a question on a lot of people's lips is all about Ben Johnson, 4 million, and he's in competition with Ryan Fredericks, but we know he can give cover on the left as well. Do you think he'll start at right back?
It's tricky. I mean, Moyes has always been quite loyal to players, I think, as long as they're obviously playing well. So it's really, don't really know what his view on it. I mean, to be fair, he did play well at the end of the season, and Fredericks was back and was fit, so he did keep him on the bench. So as things stand, you'd have to say on the balance of probabilities, it's probably his to lose. So he's either going to have an indifferent or poor pre-season, and Fredericks have a blinding pre-season. And I don't think Fredericks is trusted defensively, because I've sort of seen vague sort of things about him being offered. And I think if a club come in, not that they're going to, but so, I don't know, say one of the Championship clubs came in, or one of the other teams came in and offered some what they considered silly money, I think they'd take it and go and get someone else as maybe sort of 24, 25-year-old. So I think he's probably going to start, but I think it's one of those ones we have to see if he plays regularly in pre-season and what he does. But he's definitely got the potential, and I think he's probably one of the reasons why we let Ngakia go, because obviously they knew that he was kind of there and maybe ahead of him, ahead of Ngakia. So
and at the end of the day, £4 million. I mean, what do you want? Right? We talk about
you want the playing defender.
James?
Is what you
just
want.
want 2 points. That's it. So if he's in the starting lineup,
playing defender,
get him.
I think
there's other options out
probably
there. We talked about Bernardo and stuff, James, but
the Palace
I think he's
guys.
not. Yeah.
I think he's probably the standout. One of the things that really puts me off, and I don't know if it should or it shouldn't. I like you, Chris. I think at the moment it's probably his. I think he'll probably start. The two things put me off. One is the fixtures, obviously. So it does offer potentially great cover for game week 1 if you're looking to throw in and keep sort of United City assets on the bench. But it's also a risk, obviously. 2, I looked at my team last week. I got 3 fucking West Ham players in there. There's too many. And I think, and we'll come on to him, the best choice of all is not him. And remarkably, it's probably not even Antonio either. You did a great piece for us, Chris, on Soucek. Can you just elaborate on what he's giving you at the moment and why we think at 5 million he can be such a good FPL asset?
I mean, he's come from a foreign league, and you never know how players are going to respond. When he first came in, it was before the lockdown. I think he only played maybe 1 and a bit games, and he got injured. He was running around a lot, but it's difficult to see where he was going to fit in. After the lockdown, he got his place in the team a little bit more established, and Moyes got him playing in a way. So they're actually looking to get him forwards. And it's not. I know I've seen a lot of stuff on Twitter, and I know Twitter isn't the be all and end all, and it's not everyone on FPL, but about him being a defensive midfielder, deep line player. He's good on set pieces. Yes, he is good on set pieces, but as my article highlighted, the heat map for him over his 12 games, he's actually, he's a box-to-box midfielder. So he's looking to get on the end of attacks. He's not just looking to be there at a corner or a free kick. So he's going to get chances. He's going to get chances in the box. He throws himself at those chances. You know, he's looking. He's one of those players which gets on the end of the ball, which I know sounds stupid, but there's so many players that are in the box, but the ball never actually seems to come to them. He's actively looking for that ball. He scored something like 13 goals, I think, or 15 goals, including cups for Prague. So he's got a decent record, and he scored in the Champions League, he scored in the Europa League, and I think his price is so. If you compare him to the other players, he's been priced as a defensive midfielder. So you look at all of the other sort of players around him, 4.5s and 5s. Once you start going to 5.5 and 6, you start getting a more attacking element. But he's just so cheap. I mean, he enables you to do so much more with your team. So it's not just about him and what he can do as a player. It's what he can do in terms of your structure of your team. But I like him. I think he's a really good player for us. Obviously, they've signed him on a permanent at the end of the season. I think he'll definitely get chances, and he's got the potential to get close to double figures, in my opinion.
It's
numbers.
Interesting. Yeah.
Go on, Serge.
He does offer a lot, and £19 million. He was a bargain, and I think it doesn't matter who you are as a defender. Someone who's 6'4" is always hard to defend on set pieces, and he's really tall. Have you seen? It's an interesting one for both of you. Have you seen his ownership number at the moment and what percentage he's owned by?
Was about 8.6 or something when I looked about a week ago, but it started off quite high. It started off double figures, and then it's gradually come down because of the fixtures.
Massively. He's down to like 7.5% now, which for me is really low. I don't know how you guys feel about that. I thought if initially when you look at it and his price was one of the price reveals that came out early, it would be at least 20-25% because there's not much in that bracket. 7.5 seems very low. I don't know what your thoughts are, James, on that.
But Soucek's price and
his ownership 7.5%.
The ownership's massively affected by two things. One, as Chris already highlighted, the fixtures, but also two, I think it's the awkwardness of trying to fit in the premium guys means that people I'll go for the 4.5 or I'll go with 5 higher priced midfielders, for example. But I mean, you could almost put the lock in for me. I'm almost certain it'll be in. If you're just looking at his numbers during lockdown, he played every minute, which is important. 18 shots in total. This is in 9 games, 2 shots a game, 7 shots on target. He's 14 efforts inside the box. This is exactly what Chris said. These are not numbers associated with a 5 million midfielder. However, I've got a trivia question for the both of you. There were 2 players who are currently priced at 5 million in the game who scored more FPL points than Soucek from restart onwards. One of them is Matt Ritchie, who was classified as defender, so that's explained. Do you know who the other player is?
2 players in the whole game. So
if you exclude Ritchie, there's one other player now who's a 5 million midfielder who scored more FPL points from restart than Soucek.
I think I did look this. I did like looking at his price and looking at the players, but I can't think who it is.
5 million. Goalkeepers aside, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it's a midfielder.
It's not going to be.
Is it another West Ham? It's not another West Ham player, is it?
You got me on the quiz where you talked about who had the most touches in the opposition box, and you said Mark. That was in the FPL quiz, and that was Mark Noble, but he didn't score any goals.
It's not Mark Noble. It's Declan Rice.
Oh,
yeah.
Declan Rice in the last 9 games scored 4 more FPL points than Soucek. Soucek had 3 goals and no assists. Rice had a goal and 3 assists. Rice also had 4 more bonus points than Soucek. Are we missing something here? It's just a question. If I was looking at the numbers, that's the sort of thing that someone's going to hang on. Isn't the best asset someone else within the same club? Now, obviously, on what we watch with Soucek, yeah, but I'm just saying, are we missing something here with Rice as well?
You said one goal and 3 assists for Rice there, right?
In the 9 games, yeah.
I think Rice does seem to do better on the bonus. Maybe it's because of his interceptions. So he's obviously rewarded a lot more on the BPS system. I suppose if Soucek got the winning goal, maybe that would make a slight difference to his. I must admit, when I looked it up, afterwards, I did look at his BPS Soucek, and it is quite low. So considering he scored 3 goals, but then you've got a small, a relatively small pool of games, really, 12 games. It's tricky. I mean,
in the games he scored, Antonio will go and score 1 or 2 more and what have you, maybe picks up more on the BPS. An interesting one on what you said there, James. Like if you look at Rice's goal post-lockdown, sticking it in the top corner, I can't see him doing it more than once again next season, once or twice, because he doesn't shoot from there that much. Whereas Soucek's goals, getting in on corners and that kind of thing, I can see him doing it again and again and again. So I just think Rice's 3 assists is probably more than he had the whole pre-lockdowns part of the season as well, because he didn't get that forward. There were a couple of games, especially the Norwich one, where we were dominating the ball so much that Rice was able to get further forward. I don't see that happening. Whereas Soucek on set pieces and getting in and around, I can see happening again and again and again. So there's no not even a debate on whether Soucek's a better asset than Rice at the same time.
I think with Rice though, there obviously, I think a lot of people judge him on his England games rather than his West Ham games, because obviously more people see the England games than they do West Ham, unless they're West Ham fans. But he does actually have that, I'd say, attacking intent. Like you say, he's not going to get forward as much in as many games. Certainly if you've got a difficult game, Soucek's going to be the one who's going to get on the end of crosses, going to look to get to the box. Rice won't be doing that. But in the easier games, okay, but I suppose Rice could get close, because again, he's someone he'll play 90 minutes. So he's not going to miss many games unless he's injured. He doesn't get booked a lot. One interesting thing though on Soucek is he didn't actually pick up any bookings. So that helps. That might help with which is surprising for a player in his position, wherever he's on the pitch. But he didn't have any bookings.
For me, a lot of people talk to him about as a 5th midfielder. He's actually going to be my 4th midfielder.
Yeah, I'd agree.
And I think I'm going to play him week. I'm going to go with I'm thinking a 3-4-3 at the moment because of the good attacking options up front. And so I'm going to use Soucek as my 4th midfielder and play him week in, week out, and just go with it rather than 5th midfielder and only play him in favourable fixtures for me.
Yeah, you could have a 5 and a 6, couldn't you? You could have a 5 or 5.5 and 6. You could have 2 sort of cheapish ones. But like you say, Soucek would be in there.
Even 5.5, you can go with the Saint Maximin or Armstrong. Armstrong and Soucek are actually going to be my maybe 3rd and 4th midfielders here, and then I'll have 2 first and second that are 10 million plus. There are some 6.5s there. What would the Anderson or Lanzini have to do to become of any interest? We spoke with our Brighton correspondent about the likes of Trossard at 6 million and stuff. Someone's going to break through. There's no doubt that Anderson has the ability, but I just don't see it.
It's going to take a big change in fortunes and attitude, really. They're certainly out of favour. They've just not. They didn't do anything in the post-lockdown games. They were given chances. They didn't really take it. They weren't. There's nothing they did in those 10 games that I can recall that they did. They didn't. I can't think of a single thing of use that they actually did in any of the games, other than being on the bench. The only one really in that bracket would be Bowen. It's a bit of a shame in a way, because he's a good asset, but then you're going to pay 1.5 million. He could do very well if he could get more goals. He could be quite good, but then when you start comparing him with other teams, you're not realistically going to put 2 West Ham midfielders in your team, and that's the thing. So that kind of, from an FPL perspective, although he's a good player and he's probably he might even outscore Soucek in terms of points, he's not going to be 1.5 million better, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely spot on that. Jared Bowen's a really good player and is capable of doing very well if you just isolate that and go, yeah, great, Jared Bowen, fine, he could be. But I just think Soucek's price just almost eliminates him. And I mean, you're talking about sort of Anderson, Lanzini and the like, maybe even Yarmolenko. If one was to break out at that particular value at 6 million, it's probably the one you've forgotten, Snodgrass. I would have thought he's probably the one. Moyes likes him, doesn't he?
He does, but I think he's behind. Don't forget, there's quite a lot of competition there at the moment. I mean, Anderson will he still be there? If the right offer come in, I think they'd get rid of him, but it's going to be difficult getting anything for him at the moment of value. Snodgrass, I think, is probably not going to be first choice because obviously he's on the same side as Bowen, isn't he? So Bowen, I would say Bowen would keep that spot. And then you've got Dean Garner. So if Dean Garner has a good season, he would be a natural fit on the left. Good player, but I don't know what his output's going to be in terms of goals and assists. I know he did well at West Brom, but he might be one of those players which struggles at the Premier League but does well in the Championship level. He's still young, so that's what I say. Pre-season is one of those that will probably give us a few answers on that. But I think Snodgrass he'll come in if someone gets injured. I don't think he'll be first choice though. But I mean, obviously he's got the crossing ability. He's got a good sort of reasonably good FPL record. But again, it all comes down to the fact that he's more expensive. He's still more expensive than Soucek. So it just comes down to that 5 million again, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And I just think if people identify some numbers, I think all them above Soucek will just get ruled out.
Yeah.
Because exactly what you said, Bowen is not going to equate to 1.5 million worth of better points than Soucek. I mean, if you look at, again, looking at numbers, Soucek had 18 shots to Bowen's 16 during the restart. Soucek 7 on target to Bowen's 2, for example. I mean, Rice actually took 13 shots on goal, but only 2 in the box. 2 on target. In the box, Soucek 14, Bowen 12, Rice 3. It's the XG as well. The crowd will love that. Soucek's 2.23 XG during restart is good, comparable to Bowen's 1 and Rice's 0.72. Actually, the only thing I just think is those who are hunting on numbers, Declan Rice gives a good argument against Bowen. There is a sustained period of data here where, whether you think that's sustainable or not, he has outscored him. But I just think, for me, it's lock on Soucek. It's all the off-the-ball running in terms of the ball goes into wide areas and it's on demand, get in the box.
Yeah.
You talked to Chris about the fact that you haven't got a creative player as such. So many teams at the moment don't. The game seems to be evolving to teams not having a natural number 10 as such. And it is becoming about that, you know, you've got kind of Liverpool who play with a narrow 3 and their wide players tuck in. For you, it's more about your wide players staying wide and can you get a midfield runner from midfield to get in and support Antonio, who just because it's Antonio attracts attention as well, which is good for Soucek. Yeah. And the ball goes into wide areas, doesn't think twice, he gets in the box. That's almost like his remit. That's why it's possibly an unfair comparison, but we keep mentioning Fellaini because that's what Fellaini used to do. Yeah. The ball used to go into wide areas and he just used to go and drift into the box. It's exactly what Soucek does. Same manager. That's where the comparison is going to come from. I think at 5 million, even with the fixtures, you guys have said about having him as 4th choice. I'm probably going to have him as my 5th. Start with him game week 1. And I'm prepared to pay the extra for him to sit there, knowing that I'm going to want him during the season. I think that's my take on it at the moment.
I think one good thing is because his ownership's come down, it gives you a little bit, because obviously people do play importance on prices. That will help because most people who have got him probably are going to leave him there. So his price isn't going to go down. I mean, to be fair, so he's one of those players that, okay, if he goes down 0.1, even 0.2 because the fixtures are bad, I'm not too worried because he's a transfer that I don't have to make unless he gets injured. I know I run that risk. If he got injured in the 3rd or 4th game and he's come down by 0.2, then okay, I'll take that hit. But I think he's just worth leaving there for that.
If he plays the way he played during restart, if he drops to 4.9, 4.8, he'll be going back up very quickly. Yeah, people, even if he's not returning, people are going to be like, "It's coming, it's coming." Them numbers are too good for a 5 million midfielder. So you could almost look at my squad now and go Trent, Robertson. I'm not far away from that. I'd be amazed if I didn't start with him. Talk to me about Antonio, Chris, because
James has said,
so appeals as well. He's not in mine at the moment, Suj. I've taken him out.
Really? Because the interesting thing is James said...
it's because we just recorded with Dara, so now I want Mitrovic.
And Mitrovic is a little bit cheaper. Antonio, obviously, fitness issues because he just can't play a full 38-game season. But James described him as fixture-proof. And that's quite an important thing to think about with the fixtures that we have. Do you think he's fixture-proof?
Yeah, I mean, he's in one sense he is because he can. When you look at who he has scored against, he hasn't scored against many of the all of the big teams, but then he hasn't been playing up front as an out-and-out striker for that long. So you're judging him on him playing on the wing. His first half of the season wasn't the best. Like you said, he's prone to the odd injury. He doesn't get a lot of injuries, but he'll get an injury and then he'll be out for sort of like 3 or 4 weeks. He's not in the Andy Carroll category, but he might be out for sort of 5 or 6 weeks, and he's a big miss for us. But he will cause teams a lot of problems. He doesn't stop running. He's not one of those what you'd call natural footballers. He's hard working, and he creates something out of nothing just by his tenacity. And he's very difficult to play against because you don't really know what he's going to do in terms of where the ball's going to go and that kind of thing. But he's going to run at you. He's going to be aggressive. He's strong. He's quick, and his finishing's getting better.
He's quite deceptive. There's so many times when he just looks knackered. I don't know what you think.
Yes.
Kenny. I just think he looks so tired that I just wouldn't recommend him for anyone in FPL ever. And then the git will go and score 4 goals 3 days later.
I've not really got anything to say on that matter, mate. Please keep digging your own fucking grave while you're there, mate.
Oh, look, we win some and we lose others.
You
At the moment,
definitely
there's no debate about Haller or Antonio. If someone's looking for their FPL team and they want one of the two, it's going to be Antonio, isn't it, at the same price?
Yeah, I mean, Antonio is, again, it's a similar to some of the other players. He at the end of the day, he was our end up being top scorer. You're not going to suddenly put him back on the wing because Haller's now fit. It's Haller's to earn that place back, and he's got to do that by Antonio coming on off the bench, maybe Antonio having an injury or something like that, or not being fit, to get in the team and actually perform. He's capable, Haller, but he's not in at the moment. He's behind Antonio, and I think Antonio could score. It's difficult with the fixtures because you're not gonna. There's so many reasons why you wouldn't put him in there, but he could pick you up sort of 3 or 4 goals in that period quite easily.
You don't see any formation that might be 2 up top, because we've seen glimpses of it, and there are occasions where it's worked really well. And you'd think that Antonio and Haller both up top could be 2 of the strongest strikers in a partnership in the league in terms of physical strength and trouble that they could cause people. They're both big units.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. But if you think about fixtures, that's probably the worst time to be playing 2 up top. So that's probably pretty much 99% certain that's not going to happen. So even in the Newcastle game, he's not going to play 2 up front, knowing that he's going to be playing 1 up front for the other 7 games. So that means it's Antonio starting up front. I think with that solidity we have with Soucek and Rice, and the ability for them to be able to actually get around the pitch. Funnily enough, I don't know who's going to play that number 10 role, because Noble played there.
No one.
Yeah. No, that's right, Suj. Yeah, it's Noble, Rice, Soucek, and depending, there's slight tweaks on that depending on who the opposition is, and you actually play slightly different with the ball and without the ball. With the ball, it's Soucek to get off it. Without the ball, it means quite often that Noble sometimes will go and play the highest of the 3, because I think there's concerns about his recovery if the ball goes beyond him, whereas Soucek has got more legs to get about the pitch. So there's slight variations in terms of offensively and defensively. That's why I think sometimes if you look at heat maps on Soucek can be quite concerning as well, because you think, he's a bit deeper than Rice and Noble in some situations here. But with the ball, when you're then offensively, Noble's not the one who's going to be flying into the box, is it?
No.
Soucek. And they also protect Noble without the ball. That's what I picked up. I really picked up on it in the Manchester United game. Interestingly, on Antonio as well, just having a quick look while he was talking, Chris, he obviously scored against United and Chelsea during restart. I don't know how many goals he's got against Spurs, but it's fucking loads, to be fair. And I just looked, he's got 4 in 6 against Liverpool as well. So he can score in these games, definitely.
Yeah, he's not incapable, and he's not someone that only scores at home or anything like that. He was, if anything, it probably the harder games, he won't get as many chances, and that's probably been his weakness, because he's probably one of those players which isn't a natural finisher, needs more chances. But then he's now playing up front. He's becoming more accomplished as a finisher, because because he's
Did you
playing that
see?
position.
You saw the ball he put through to Yarmolenko for the goal against Chelsea, the 89th minute winner. Maybe Antonio could be on number 10 if he's putting through balls like that through to people coming in off the wings. All I wanted from this podcast, James, was Chris to come on and make me feel like we're going to win the league, and you've done it. We've got defensive stability with Rice and Soucek. We've got attacking options. We've got Antonio, and we've got 5 million defenders in Ogbonna and Creswell. We're going to win the league, James.
I think we finished second, actually. But...
Do you know what? Do you know what I was trying to do there? I was trying to do the old Frozen trick on YouTube. So I just didn't know if I was there or not. I've got nothing to say, mate.
No. Let's build up these hopes and dreams, Chris, because that's how we like to start the season, with big hopes and dreams. If they fade and they die, so be it. But from an FPL point of view, it's nice to see that there are some interesting There was so many periods of last season you wouldn't have touched West Ham players with the barge pole, but now there are a few options there that may come good, and looking forward to seeing that.
I think
priced the same as relegation teams, and we're priced the same as promoted teams. So you put us above the promoted teams in general, because we've obviously got the Premier League experience. You've got players in there that performed better at the end of the season. So I think pricing wise, that's what it is. It's about the pricing. The pricing makes them more attractive. It's worth the risk.
I think if your main 11 with what you've got now, Antonio, the Bowens, Souceks, Fabianski in goal, we haven't mentioned. If these really important players, and Rice obviously, stay fit for all of the season, I don't think top half is beyond you. Because I think actually you'll have more consistency about you this year. But I would anticipate this year will be better for you in the sense that you won't be in a dogfight. But that's generally probably the maximum of what I would see from you this year.
Yeah, and I'd say if we got, say, 9th or something, I'd say we've over.
That's an amazing season if you finish 9th.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't go into it really realistically thinking that that's what we're going to get. I'd be happy with sort of 10th. 9th or sort of 10th down to 12th, really. That would be an okay season.
You're in a period here where you might change people's perceptions, I think, in terms of, it's West Ham. There was little things in the restart, the Chelsea game, the United game, that made you think maybe something's changing here in terms of the spine and the structure of the team, that harder to beat. You're not just going to get rolled over, like you say. So you always say you like to have your belly tickled on that. So I don't think you'd be in a relegation fight this year.
And the confidence,
as long as the key players stay fit.
What you got to think about there, James, as well, is especially getting into the United game, we'd come off the back of a few results. So confidence, we're out of the relegation zone, and that has a massive, massive difference.
You still played well in the day, mate.
Yeah, we did.
But what I mean by that is, you put it this way: West Ham teams of the past would have gone up there and been like, we're safe now, fuck it. But you didn't. You went up there and did the job and played professionally. So there might be a small sort of sea change happening.
I think even when we played Villa, obviously Villa potentially needed something out of that game.
I heard it was a thriller.
It was the best game you've ever seen in your life, I reckon.
It wasn't, mate, because I was watching Crystal Palace and Tottenham. So
I was definitely better than that. But no, I think one thing we did show was a little bit of spirit. And it wasn't, I wouldn't say we've completely turned things around, because we haven't. But when we concede a goal, like you said, Cedric, it's usually from a mistake rather than some other team's moment of complete brilliance. And their heads just go down, and that's it. You just know we're done. Where that wasn't the case, you still felt we had a glimmer of hope, at least, to get back in that game. And obviously against Chelsea, that's what happened. I know Chelsea on their day were poor defensively. We exploited it, but how often have we actually gone and exploited any team, really, when it comes to it?
Indeed. So there you go. Chris, thank you for joining us, as always. If anybody wants to find you on Twitter, let me get this right. And if I butcher it, you can help me. It's at FI_FPL Addict 123.
That is it.
And of course, if you head over to Planet FPL Pod and look under the lists, Twitter lists, we've got all the correspondents in one place where you can go and follow them all straight away. In Touchwood, you never know, before the end of the season, mate, we may be in Mother Kelly's having a pint before the game.
I thought you could say mother care.
Mother Kelly's having a pint before the game.
Might be crying like babies at some point in the season. But
no doubt we will. Thank you so much for joining us, as always. If you've enjoyed this episode, then do make sure you check out all the other chats that we're having with our 20 correspondents throughout the season. It'll give you some good and interesting insight into the players from every individual team. James, anything else to add?
No, Gooner's next.
Oh, here we go. You know how to line them up, don't you? He's done it
I just prepped, yeah.
Excellent. Good stuff. Thank you so much, Chris. Come on, you Irons. Stay safe.
Come on, you Irons. Cheers.
Thanks, Chris. Oh, God, that was painful. Cue music, man, child.